but it was still unusual, especially in school. And one time, my mother, she hated it so much, she came into the bedroom with some scissors. She was going to cut it off while I was sleeping. And I woke up and I saw her coming down with the scissors, and I got up and she actually chased me through the house, trying to cut it off. But I kept it. She never got to cut it.
Pranam Gurudev.
On that set. But I was uh, a few years ago. I had my teeth, uh, the ones that were missing. I had them all replaced. They're by a dentist in Delhi on both sides, and also on the front. Um, and then that last, not not the last fall I had down the stairs, but the fall before that when I fell down the stairs and um, my brain was bleeding, and they they were looking to see if they had to do a brain operation, so they're giving me a MRI every hour. Anyways, it knocked out my teeth on both sides there and there. But it's been so long. I was going to have them replaced because they were new, and I didn't want them to be missing, um, especially in the United States where they judge you on your teeth. But it's been so long now. I was telling I was telling Archana that I, I don't think I think I'm just going to leave it like it is. It doesn't bother me at all now. This way I don't have to worry about it. Don't have to worry about the hair. Don't have to worry about the teeth. And I don't think anybody really cares. I don't really care. There's a lot of old Indian stories about disciple of the guru and young man usually is in the story. And the stories are about uh, staying with the guru, uh, obeying the guru, and staying on the spiritual path. And don't make your life complicated. And there's several versions of the story. So the story, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but the story is uh, as you live, life just starts to become compu complicated uh, as you live. Things just start to attach themselves to you. In other words, you choose one thing. Um, if you don't have a car, you don't have any problems. If you get a car, then you start having car problems. You have to change the oil. You might get an accident. You have to get new tires. But if you don't have a car, you take your cab or you take public transportation, and you don't have the problems. So the story goes is he was one version is he was fond of drinking milk and curd, and a neighbor said, I have an extra cow. Instead of going into town and buying it, I can just give you the cow, and you can have all the milk and curd that you like. So he took the cow, and then he had to feed the cow, and uh, he had to protect the cow, and then there were droughts, and then he said, "Well, I'll extend the field and make larger fields with drainage." So he put in drainage. So it starts out the guru is saying you have the perfect life, you have no attachments, you have no complications. So be careful in life that nothing attaches itself to you. In other words, make wise choices. Don't make your life complicated. See the ramifications of the choices that you make. And he said, "Yes, Guruji, I'll do that." But it all started off with the cow. And Yogananda has the same version with the sadhu who had a rag. So
I'm good.
that's that. So the guru leaves the disciple. They go their separate ways. On the guru's going on a trip, and he's gone for several years, and comes back. And when he left, his disciple was just had no complications. Oh, didn't have anything. And when he came back, he had a big farm. He had a couple of dozen cows. He had a wife. He had children, and he had stopped doing his sadhana because of the life was so demanding. But I'm sure y'all have heard these stories, right? Different versions of them. Um, have you? I'm sure you have. Right. So once you have uh, self-realization, once you have God realization, God realization, you see how simple everything is, and you see how simple God realization is, and you see others, worldly people, that are uh, immersed in the world. Some of them wonder about God. Is there God? But many of them are so happy with their worldly life, they never even think about God. They think about um, their enjoyments, and they think about their possessions, and they think about their family, and they never think about God. They just think about um, their life in the world, how nice it is, or how they can make it better, or how terrible it is, and how somebody else's life is better, and they wish that their life would be better. So that continues the cycle of reincarnation into the world, because that's what your interest is. If your interest is in the world, you're going to continue to come back to the world. And it could be thousands and thousands of reincarnations, um, or more. Um, I, I think almost all of you have had at least 1,000 reincarnations minimum. Um, to have several hundred reincarnations, a person wouldn't really be ready for spirituality. It takes a lot of reincarnations to get through to us that what's promised in life is never delivered, ever, never is. You'll never find happiness in life, and then when you do, it's snatched away from you. I noticed that when I was 10 years old.
That's it.
That's that everybody that my mother and father and the parents of the other children my age, and then my brother that was older, and then students in college, and then those that had graduated from college and had jobs and had families, and then uh, had became grandparents and had grandchildren, and their parents uh, had passed on uh, after that sometime, and then they start to become old, and they see what the world. Uh, I thought I would always be young. I thought I was always be vital. I thought I could always do the things that I was able to do, and now coming into old age and I'm not able to. So you become disappointed with life. And that happens to everybody. Everybody has disappointment in life because none of it is real. Many times what the scriptures mean that they don't mean that the world is actually itself is an illusion, even though you could say that it is. What they mean is there's no substance to it. There's no satisfaction from it. There's no happiness from it. What we perceive as happiness is really that we have is really concentration. We're concentrated on something because we're interested in it. We're concentrated on something because we enjoy it, and then that's where we get our happiness. And because we enjoy it, we do it again the following day. And it can be anything. It can be it doesn't have to be heavy sensual pleasures. It can be simple things like the food that you eat. Maybe you like grapes, or maybe you like corn, or maybe you like papayas. So you look forward to having papayas the next day or the next week. But you lose your teeth and you have to cut up the papayas, and you lose more teeth and you have to mash up the papayas. You have to drink papayas to drink the juice. And then there comes a time where you can't even have any more papayas because you've lost your physical body again. But if all of your thoughts are on the world, you will come back to the world. This is the way that it works. And so it might take you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of incarnations before that gets through to you. And in my own case, I was working very, very passionately for a type of spiritual campaign. This was centuries ago. And the result, I mean, I was very devoted and very dedicated, extremely. And I had my head cut off. I still remember there were a couple of other men before me, and I watched their heads being taken off, and then I was coming up next. And how disappointed I was in life that everything that I worked for resulted in nothing. It was resulted in the end of my life. Nothing at all had been accomplished. Everything was. I never saw the fruit of any of my actions at all. And it was that incarnation that it finally got through to me. That to be dispassionate about this world, do not have intensity of longings or desire for anything in the world. And it's only then that you can make spiritual progress. You really have to come to a point to where you can see in a glance. You can see in your parents and your grandparents. You can see in a glance. You can see pictures of your parents when they were young. You can see pictures of your grandparents when they were young, and then now you see them aging older. And you yourself, you don't see yourself aging at all. You see yourself becoming something greater and greater. So at first you can't even walk, and then you're able to walk, and then you're able to run. So you're becoming better and better and better and better until you reach past middle age. or altering it. And in my case, it wasn't until I turned was in my 50s before I started to have any decline at all. So we're becoming more and more and more. We're reaching the pinnacle of our worldly existence. This is if we live a long life. And then you come to a peak. This is just in a matter of years. Your health, your satisfaction in life, if you've had your desires fulfilled, and then it starts going. You go up the hill, and then you have to go back down the hill as your body approaches death. That's the continuous cycle, and you can stay on that indefinitely as long as you think about the world. So japa, mantras, these things, all they are just little tricks to take your mind off of the world. That's all it is. If you're given a mantra, we can say that the mantra is holy and sacred and has special powers. But as Lahiri Mahasaya says, the special power of any mantra isn't the vibration of the mantra. It's in our practice. That's the power. We are the power. So the mantra given by the guru is to take your mind off the world and to place it on on the holy name of God. If you're given Ram or Hare Krishna or any type of mantra that is obviously God-oriented and sacred. And if you're repeating the mantra, even if you're doing it mechanically, if you're not aware of doing it consciously, let's say it's become so habitual, you're chanting, just by example, we'll choose Ram. So verbally, you're chanting Ram for years, and then you're chanting Ram mentally. You don't even have to chant Ram physically anymore. And then you're just all your thought, all your direction is Ram. You see everything is Ram. You see on the back door screen. There's a little creature that's coming out of its shell of some type. I thought it was a praying mantis. You know what praying mantises, how interesting they are. But it's not a praying mantis. It's something similar, but really unusual. But I opened the screen and I put it open so it would be under the eaves so it wouldn't rain and the dog wouldn't disturb it. So he could process coming out of this shell. And I can see him struggling to remove himself from this outer covering. He's making real slow progress. It's been 3 days now. And I was thinking, I wish I could help him in some way. But if I tried to help him, it would probably pull him apart and kill him. So I said, well, I just have to let nature take its course. So that that nature in life is Brahman. That nature in life is God. The energy of life is God. And when you take your mind off the world and you chant a holy name, you think about God, and you don't have to realize God. Just thinking of God is directing your attention to God, and then you start to become in tune with God. From our reading, and I thought this: so reading the scriptures, if you don't have the guidance of a guru, you think, and there's a lot of people that think this about Kriya Yoga. They have to become a great yogi. And I've seen a couple of people on Facebook, and they call themselves a Maha Yogi, a great yogi, and they've mastered so many things that yogis master. And they've had pictures taken of themselves and the snow without any clothes, and doing all the different hatha yoga poses and pranayamas, and even meditating with no movement for hours and hours. So if we don't have guidance when we read the scriptures, or if we listen to people with their opinions, we think that we have to become a yogi, that we have to become that. Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi, it wasn't about him becoming a yogi. That wasn't his goal. His goal was God realization. It wasn't to become a yogi. But because we're so blinded by living in this world, our understanding, our intellect, our the concepts we have, the opinions of others, especially, form our concepts. That if we listen to people who we consider to be more knowledgeable than ourselves about God, we listen to them, and we're taking their concepts, and we're taking them in to ourselves. So we're not progressing. If you listen to spiritual teachers, if you read the scriptures without guidance, you're not progressing. You're taking on more and more ideas, more and more thoughts about actions and things of the world. You often see, well, I'll just use Sri M as an example. I see talks of his, and he talks about uh, miraculous things. And once he saw a Yeti, for example, and another one he said that he saw Babaji cure a girl of cancer. The things he's talking about are all physical things that changes in the world. So it's important to understand that the changes that you make in this world are not important. Uh, you could be an accountant like Lahiri Masai is and go to the office every day. You don't have to renounce the world and go into the forest. And he was around worldly people all day long, but he kept his concentration on his work. But you'll see. I'm sure you've been around people that once they have Kriya Yoga initiation, they think, well, I need to change my job. I need to get a spiritual job to keep me on the spiritual path. I can't work this job and around all these worldly people that never think about God. So we have very misguided ideas like that. And, and that is entirely not true. Um, you have to understand that it's you that are totally responsible only for where your attention is. And you can appear to be having your attention on God in meditation, for example. If a group of Kriya yogis come together, I'll use
And there
it
is
on Tat. I'll use the example of Ananda, because I'm friends with a lot of people from Ananda in India, not in America, but I am. They're all Indian. Um, I see almost all of them and then also those in uh, self-realization fellowship. I see almost all of them concentrating on physical things as spiritual practice. Very, very rarely you see somebody that really understands what Kriya Yoga is and who is actually practicing Kriya Yoga. They're relating Kriya Yoga to physical things. I have to meditate this amount of minutes in the morning, this amount of minutes in the afternoon. I have to eat this. I have to not eat that. I have to keep myself around spiritually minded people, not worldly people, because people are influential. I, I found that it's the spiritual people that hindered me the most. When I was young, I would listen to the opinions of people who are interested in becoming uh, God realized or enlightened. And because they were older, there's this one man in particular made a real impression on me, and he practiced Kundalini yoga, but he would speak with so much conviction. I I didn't follow him, or I didn't because I already had my practice, but I would listen to him talk to other people because groups of people would gather around him, and he was talking about Kundalini yoga, uh, the chakras, the meditations, the methods, the different things that everybody was interested in. And I found that I wasn't interested at all. I was learning about chakras and uh, Kundalini yoga practices, but I wasn't interested in it. And I didn't change my practice, but I found it interesting that uh, uh, about those things, but not to the point to where I would uh, practice those things. I already had my practice. So all of these things that we do externally had no effect on our spiritual realization, none at all. We can, going back to Ananda, I can see into a person's mind. I can see what they're thinking of. And just like Sri Yukteswar and Lahiri Mahasaya and Yogananda could see, Ramakrishna could see. You can see what a person is thinking. Just at a glance, anybody. There's uh, there's many different factors you can see uh, by their physical attitude of their physical body, and then you can see the attitude of their uh, mental state, and you can read on their face, and you can read on. I guess you would classify it as their mental activity that causes most people would categorize that as their aura, I suppose. Um, and you can see what they're dedicated to. You can see what they're thinking. Uh, how many people have their attention on God? It's very rare. Uh, Archana and I and others, as we travel through the Himalayas, we were always on the lookout for an enlightened yogi or a Mahatma. And I was fortunate to live with genuine Mahatmas when I was just a boy. So I know what a Mahatma is. I can recognize a Mahatma. And we were around sadhus, we were around gurus, we we would go and we would listen. Uh, uh, that I, I I think he was a great saint. I think it was Devendra Baba, something. I think that was his name. They're in uh, Vrindavan. Remember Archana? And he's a saint that he lived most of his life up on a platform there on the Yamuna River, uh, and he never came down off of that platform, and nobody was ever allowed to touch him. And he was reported to have lived uh, a couple of hundred years. And I would watch him occasionally. He looked very authentic to me, the way he interacted with people up on his perch on this platform. And he was said to have been incarnated with characteristics of Shiva, which I seemed to be true to me. But then he did die. He did pass on, and he had disciples. So when we went to the ashram uh, in Vrindavan, we knew that he'd already passed, but we wanted to go there because it was a place of pilgrimage, and uh, we saw that there was a Mahatma there, and it was a disciple of this great saint. You could tell that he lived there, and you could tell that obviously he would come out uh, probably 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's a little outdoor seated place where he would sit, and then people could come up to him for his blessings or for questions um, um, about sadhana and spiritual realization. And we sat there for a little while. And I think Archana didn't. I think his first question for us was, could we practice Khetri Mudra? I think that was the first thing he said, which is a great question. I think somebody had told him, or he could see that we were yogis practicing spiritual disciplines. So that's a good question to ask somebody, because if if they do, uh, it shows that they've really been dedicated to their practice, even if it's just physical. They've been dedicated to the practice of perfecting Khechri Mudra. Um, but we sat there and listened, and I could see that his mind was on other things. It wasn't on, his mind wasn't on God. I could see that. I could see it very clearly. Uh, I think he said very casually. He said that we have. I think he said 28,000 devotees or disciples. Um, and as I listened to him, I didn't see anything significant about him, other than he was knowledgeable about yoga practices, and he was uh, living the life of a yogi, of a devotee. But I didn't see any realization. So perfecting your life to some ideal isn't the way to perfection. Isn't the way to enlightenment. It's a it's a it could be said it's disciplining yourself, uh, similar to disciplining yourself to be a great wrestler, or disciplining yourself to be a great boxer, or disciplining yourself to be a great dancer, disciplining yourself to be a great swimmer, uh, perfecting yourself to be a great chef, disciplining yourself to be a great yogi is in the same category as all those. Do you think disciplining yourself to be a yogi is superior to discipline in yourself and those other things. This is what we think, don't we? Because we relate everything to the physical body. It isn't at all. But the majority of people that practice Kriya Yoga, they think that they're perfecting themselves because of the actions that they do in the world. That isn't Kriya Yoga at all. But look at most of the Kriya Yoga teachers. That's what they teach. It isn't what you do physically. But what you do physically really has very little effect. It'd be similar to because there's other people that have perfected themselves as yogis uh, physically in their activities that don't know anything about yoga. They never even heard of yogis, but they live the life of a yogi. They live in solitude, or they live in remote places. They're vegetarians. They sit and they contemplate, and they might read. They might be devoted to a particular scripture, the Bible, or the Gita, and they're always thinking about God, but they're not identifiable with any group or any tradition. And they can be very spiritually advanced, even though you would just look at them and just think, oh, well, that's just a typical person in the village, or it's just it's just another person from the doing the farming, because he's working all day with the crops, and he doesn't seem to be doing any meditation practice. He just sits calmly after work. He might have some tea and just sit there and have his tea and just look at the clouds and look at the mountains and look at the grass, and doesn't seem to be practicing any particular meditation, but he's contemplating. You can be just as effective in the right contemplation, but by not doing anything in any regard that has to do with any yoga practice. It's possible to be much, much more advanced spiritually in somebody who's practicing spiritual disciplines that are obvious. You know, he lives in an ashram. He goes to the temple. He dresses this particular way. He eats this particular way. He practices these techniques. But where is his heart? It all has to do with your heart. We think it has to do with our mind. A certain percentage has to do with your mind. And your mind can only take you so far. So concentrating, using Kriya Yoga techniques help you take your mind off of the world. That's just the first step. Well, actually, the first step is becoming disenchanted with the world by your thousands or hundreds of incarnations. You start to become disenchanted. You slowly start to get through to you. Even though you don't remember your past life, the memory's still there. It's just in your subconscious. So that your previous life has a tremendous effect on your present life. I mean, a big, big effect. What you are right now is because of your previous life, the life you just had before. And the life you had just before, the life before that made you what you were in your last life. And what you are right now is because of the life directly before this one. You can go from life to life to life, practicing Kriya Yoga techniques without making much progress. So it is true that you practice Kriya Yoga, and you've seen very, very detailed accounts of every revolution of the Kriya Pranayama is equal to so many years of normal evolution. You've all heard that said, right? Well, think about it. Yogananda spoke of that, but try to understand why he would speak of such a thing. Paramahansa Yogivah spoke of that quite often. Not all the Kriya Yogas gurus speak of that. I certainly don't speak about it. By doing Kriya Pranayama, you're just accelerating your normal evolution. Why be concerned about accelerating your normal evolution? I'm not. I don't care about it. Accelerating your normal evolution is still very slow. It's the airplane route compared to the turtle route, of course. The rabbit's faster than the turtle. So if you compare the rabbit to the turtle in this modern age of airplanes, you could say, well, that rabbit's like a jet compared to the turtle. It'll all be in comparison. What is more, what is more, what is less, or what is less, or what is less. Is that what you want to continue to do? That isn't God realization or self-realization becoming more or becoming less. It's realizing what you are right now. That's all it is. Realizing what you are right now. That's the most difficult thing for people to do. For disciples or those that practice sadhana, the most difficult thing for them to do is to realize what they are. Because you're always trying to be something. You're always trying to improve something. And others tell you that the way to enlightenment is by improving yourself. And you can quote Yogananda. He's telling the importance of improving yourself. Well, listen, understand who his audience was. His audience were primarily in the United States. And this is back in the 1930s, back in the 1940s. People that knew, just a couple of them, other than just a couple of them, they knew absolutely nothing whatsoever about the philosophy of yoga, the philosophy of God realization. They had heard of the Bible. Everybody that grows up in the United States is indoctrinated by, Yogananda said, churchianity, where somehow the realization of Jesus has to do with going to church, becoming a Christian and going to church. Jesus wasn't a Christian. He never became a Christian. So why are you trying to be a Christian? What was the path of Jesus? Was it Christianity? No. He was a Jew. And did he go to church every Sunday? No. So how did it become into following Jesus is going to church every Sunday? How did that evolve? How did that come about? And then listening to a preacher, listening to a minister giving a sermon about his opinions of what the Bible says, or what he was taught, what the Bible says, by somebody who doesn't know what the Bible actually says, doesn't even know what the Bible is, but they were taught by somebody who was taught, and the ignorance continues become more and more and more because they're concentrating on external actions and external things. Kriya Yoga isn't an external action. Think about that. What is Kriya Yoga? Well, so what? Well, Guruji, everybody's teaching it as an external practice. The techniques, they're arguing over the techniques. All SRF techniques are different than Ananda techniques. Kriya Yoga International is different in both of their techniques. Uh, they're not practicing Kriya Pranayama of Lahiri Mahasaya. Lahiri Mahasaya taught it this way according to preservation of his notes. Why would anybody even think of such a thing? I never thought about such a thing ever. You're not going to make any progress that way. The only way to make spiritual progress is to uh, uh, have your first glance, have your first line of sight of somebody who's God realized. That's the only way. Not by reading books. Scriptures are confusing. I'll give you an example. This is the Lagu Vakya Vritti, which is Shankaracharya's, and it's with commentary. Why is it with commentary? What do you need commentary for? Well, it's because it's real hard to understand. That's why. Why is it hard to understand? Shankaracharya, think about when he lived. Think about who he taught. Think about their language. Think about their life. It's similar to the life we have now, but it was also very different. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. Lagu Vakya Vritti. Ignorance makes the causal adjunct. Pure consciousness stands between them all. And he puts a comment, because Shankaracharya just says, stands behind them all as the witness and the illuminator. But he makes a comment in those little brackets, I don't even know what you call them, those little half circles, i.e. the three adjuncts. So he defines it to make it more clear to you what Shankaracharya is saying. Consciousness stands behind them all. As the witness and the eliminator, the reflection of the pure consciousness on the intellect, and then he puts in the brackets, acquiring the sense of individuality due to ignorance, becomes the jiva, the agent of good and evil. What was I just talking about? Actions. You're saying, well, my actions are evil. I need to make my actions good. That's practicing Kriya Yoga. I need to stop the bad habits. I need to adopt good habits. That's all well and good. If you're living on this material plane, if you don't have the initiation, if you don't have the satsang and the teachings of the God realized in person that can explain it to you, sure, it would be helpful to stop drinking alcohol. Ramakrishna had some extremely devout alcoholics as his most advanced disciples. He was never concerned about it. He never told them to stop drinking. I mean, why? Why would he not tell them to stop drinking? Isn't that interesting? if you read the Gospel of Ramakrishna in the light of Kriya Yoga, it can be extremely, extremely confusing. Well, aren't we supposed to do away with bad habits and adopt good habits? Some of his most advanced disciple, one in particular, he was a really, really bad alcoholic, a bad alcoholic. When they wake up in the morning, they have to have a drink of alcohol. They have to. I mean, it has to go into their body. And then the chemical process has to start in their body. Otherwise, they're completely worthless. That's how bad an alcoholic is. And then alcoholic will continue to drink throughout the day, builds up a tolerance for it, and then drinks a lot at night, and then starts the process again the following day. And all alcoholics aren't falling down drunk. Some are extremely productive. So he was extremely productive. He's extremely successful at what he did, but he was drinking alcohol all the time. He happened to hear that there was a Paramahansa at the Kali temple. So he wanted to go see the Paramahansa. And so he went and he listened to Ramakrishna. But, he didn't really think very much of it. And then he went to listen to Ramakrishna. He was drunk when he went to listen. And then he continued to drink as he went home to Calcutta. He didn't think much of his visit. But then the next day, and the next day, and the next day, he found that he was, for some reason, all the time he was thinking about this Paramahansa, Ramakrishna. He said, I found myself, he said, I don't know why. I would think of it. I would think about it. And I'm not even sure why I would think about it. So occasionally he would come to Ramakrishna and he would experience the same thing. He would start to have a profound experience in the presence of Ramakrishna. And then he would leave and go back home, and that experience would go away. And then occasionally he would come back. He continued to drink alcohol. And Ramakrishna saw that he was coming regularly and had some affection for him. He said, you have some good signs, meaning he looked at his face, he looked at his body. He said, you have some good signs for God realization. You could tell just by looking at his body features. And he said, he said, I wish that was true, but that's not possible. I can't practice any spiritual discipline. And Ramakrishna said, well, I'll give you a mantra and practice when the sun comes up and then practice in the evening. He said, I can't do that. He said, well, I'll give you a mantra and just practice it when you first wake up in the morning. And so I can't promise you that I'll do that. And I don't want to take the mantra from you, which is holy and sacred, and not practice the way that you taught me. I understand that that's worse than not taking the mantra at all. And I can't guarantee that I would practice the mantra even once. He said, well, practice the mantra just for 10 minutes first thing in the morning. He said, I can't even promise that. And he was serious. He said, I'll find I drank too much the night before, and I wake up late, and then I have to go right off to my work, and I won't have time, or I'll forget. Um, did Ramakrishna tell him, you have to stop drinking? You can't practice. You can't practice sadhana unless you stop drinking. No, he didn't. And he would come sometimes very, very drunk. The other disciples smell the whiskey on his breath, and they were concerned about it. They didn't like the fact that somebody was coming smelling of alcohol. Uh, remember Archana when I first came to India, and I initiated that man uh, right in front of the Shiva temples and in front of the Kali temple, right there in the courtyard in Dakshinaswar, right right there on Shiratri, the day of Shiratri, I initiated right there in the courtyard. And remember, he reeked of whiskey, of alcohol, and I gave him Kriya Yoga initiation. I didn't care about him being drunk at the time. Didn't make any difference at all. I could see it. I could see the tears in his eyes. I could see his wanting that he wanted freedom. He wanted to be free. Um, he was sincere. How, how, how many people do you see coming to Kriya Yoga initiation with uh, tears in their eyes? Usually they're coming uh, with expectation of what they're going to get. I'm going to get some secret. I'm going to be told the secret. And you can tell that's where people's minds are, because other people are writing books, Kriya Yoga Secrets Revealed. So everybody thinks it's a secret. So then he's revealing the secrets. He's just as lost and delusional as they are. And he thinks that he's superior because he's revealing the secrets. He's not really. I read the whole book. It's a big, thick book. He didn't reveal any secret. He researched all the techniques going back as far as he could go to Lahiri Masaya, methodically researched all of them and compiled the Kriya Yoga techniques. If you were to take that book and practice Kriya Yoga from that book, absolutely nothing is, you're going to know progress one iota. There's nowhere in that book that Lahiri Masaya is telling you what to do. You know, Scott, do this practice tomorrow morning. Or Lucretius, do this practice tomorrow morning. There was no guru telling him what to do, telling anybody what to do when they read the book at all. You're just reading a book with techniques in it. And he had it all categorized to where techniques for uh, entry level into Kriya Yoga, and then going all the way up into intermediate Kriya Yoga, and then going all the way to the most advanced Kriya Yoga. And he's completely ignorant of Kriya Yoga. He doesn't have a clue. He says about the advanced techniques that after you practice the beginning techniques, after you practice the intermediate techniques, then after a lot of practice, you'll be ready for the advanced techniques. I guess he's assuming he writes the book and people are going to follow methodically these steps of Kriya Yoga till they get to the advance. And that's not what advanced Kriya Yoga is at all. I've told you about the advanced, the most Kriya Yoga. Well, the intermediate uh, Kriya Yoga technique, you have to master breathlessness before you can even do it. That's what they mean. That's what Yogananda means by advancement. It isn't that you become you're a student for a long time and you pass the classes, and so you go on to the next level of education. It's not education. Kriya Yoga isn't education. Kriya Yoga is realization. So you can go into the breathless state without ever practicing any pranayama, without ever practicing any meditation. Devotees go into the breathless state uh, through bhakti all the time, probably more than they do with Kriya Yoga. The ones that actually practice bhakti yoga or love for God, whereas the Kriya Yogis are trying. The other one just, it happens because they love God from the heart, and they go into a breathless state. And you don't have to use the techniques. You can realize God without any technique at all, without any discipline, without any practice. You can just love God. So he was a real severe alcoholic, and Ramakrishna never told him to stop. And disciples were becoming, as I said earlier, becoming bothered by his smelling of alcohol. And sometimes he would get angry. Some people, alcohol makes them angry. So sometimes he would get angry and berate the disciples. Uh, so some of the disciples, the ones that had taken sannyas, they were disturbed by it. And Ramakrishna said, leave him alone. So he's doing just fine. Ramakrishna knew, and I, I don't think he told him, but Ramakrishna knew that, okay, I can't repeat. Ramakrishna says, okay, wake up in the morning and just say the name of God once. He said, well, I can't even promise that I can do that. So he was acknowledging that he was completely worthless. He could not do a single thing reliably. But he realized God. How is that possible? It goes against everything that we're taught about Kriya Yoga. Well, in the modern days, it doesn't go against what Yogananda taught or Sri Yukteswar or Lahiri Masaya. You say, well, Guruji Sri Yukteswar is very harshly disciplined his disciples. So that doesn't, what you're saying doesn't make any sense. We have to have Kriya Yoga discipline. Those were sannyasins that came to live in the ashram, and they were living an ashram life. If you're living a community life in the ashram, and it is a community, uh, you have to accurately behave properly. Have to, because you've made the dedication to living in that ashram and being taught, continually taught by Sri Yukteswar for however long it happened. For Yogananda, he went to Sri Yukteswar. He didn't live in the ashram, but he would stay sometimes at night and throughout the night, and he did this off and on for as much as he could for 10 years. He was taught by Sri Yukteswar. But what was he taught? Did Sri Yukteswar give Kriya Yoga seminars to Yogananda? So for 10 years, Yogananda was taught seminars by Sri Yukteswar. Yogananda says that time I was meditating, I was thinking about doing this and doing that. I was daydreaming. I was building things in my mind. And I knew that I was restless. And then Sri Yukteswar, it's meditation time, and Sri Yukteswar calls for me. And I ignore him because I'm meditating. Yogananda says, "This is my time. This is time for meditation." Why is Sri Yukteswar calling me? He knows that I'm meditating. Of course, he knew that he wasn't meditating. So he said a third time, "Come here. No, you're not meditating." Um, so Sri Yukteswar taught him realization. Of course, he taught him some techniques and initiated him into Kriya Yoga, but that was what wasn't given a lot of. It's almost what do they call it? I don't know what the good word is for it, but it's just kind of routine, isn't it? Because it's your routine. The word routine is used to be used for things you do absent-mindedly. That's your routine. Or that, as an alcoholic, that was his routine. Everybody has a routine. Things that by their nature, they do every day. And they can reliably do it just because that's their nature. Or maybe their nature is unreliability, and they're unreliable every day. So what has to be realized is you are not the physical body. That's the most important thing. Every morning you wake up and you're convinced that you are the physical body. You're convinced. You have no doubt about it at all, do you? Do you ever wake up in the morning and you say, "Well, I have to urinate first thing in the morning. I have to wash my face. Uh, um, I don't feel like I'm this physical body. I'm not convinced if washing my face is doing anything, because I'm not convinced that that this face is mine. Maybe my face is somebody else's face. What if people weren't convinced about their physical body? But everybody's convinced. Have you ever met anybody other than a mentally ill person that they're not the physical body? Everybody is convinced that they're the physical body. That's the number one cause of ignorance. Number one. It's what's entangled you in worldliness, is the physical body from your first incarnation as a plant, or as a insect, or as a bird, or as an animal. Because I am the physical body.
कान में लगा कान में उतना काहे से
हम तब से सुन रहे
You don't
हैं
you don't you
यहाँ
don't
वो काम
you
वो
don't
तो
think
मत
that
करो
the tiger doesn't think I'm the tiger, because the tiger has no self-awareness, but the tiger is the tiger. So that's creating impressions of the nature of a tiger. So if you took a Bengal tiger in his last life as a tiger, in his next life he became a human being, he's going to have tiger-like nature. And the God realized can see people. They can see people that were an animal or some other creature before they were human beings. You don't become half animal and half human being. You're an animal or a bird, and then you incarnate as a human being. What kind of human being are you going to be? It's your very first incarnation, and you were a pig, or you were a cow, or you were a horse, or you were a bird? What kind of human being are you going to be? Well, if you look at some people, they have pig-like qualities. Many people have pig-like qualities, or or stubbornness, laziness, restlessness, like a monkey. Monkeys are always restless. Some people are just like monkeys. Some people are just like pigs. Some people are just like cows. So all of us have this in our background. So all of us have some of that in our life. We're still behaving like an animal because we have this meat suit that we're inhabiting. It's just meat. A tiger would eat this human body for food because it's meat. So we're convinced that we're a meat suit, and we're vegetarians on top of that. We're meat ourselves. I'm meat, but I'm a vegetarian. You think being a vegetarian is doing you any good? You're meat yourself. You're convinced that I'm meat, but I don't eat meat. It doesn't make any sense. So how many people do you know that wake up in the morning and they're convinced they don't even have to think about it? I am Atma. I am Brahman. How many have you met? They don't have to meditate in the morning. They've realized that I'm Atman, or they realize I am Brahman. How many of those have you met? How many that practice Kriya Yoga of those have you met? If you had met such a person who practices Kriya Yoga, they would be a very significant person. Not so to people that are worldly, they're not going to be significant. The people that are looking for uh, uh, sincerely looking for spiritual enlightenment, they would see their significance because that's what they're looking for. A lot of people that think that Sri M is spiritually significant, or they think that Satguru is spiritually significant because they're representing, Sri M's representing Kriya Yoga. Satguru is representing whatever Satguru. Seems like he's representing everything. I don't really know about him very much. I just know that I wouldn't even cross the street to say hi to him unless he fell down. Then I would cross the street to help him get up. I would do that. So you have to understand you're not the physical body. How do you do that? Well, the best way is to associate with those that know that they're not the physical body. Very best way. If you want to be a tiger, the best way to be a tiger is to live with tigers. You see some people that are actually tiger people. They have tigers for pets, and or people that have monkeys. My father and mother had two monkeys. I grew up with two monkeys. We had monkeys at the house. They wore diapers inside the house. Um, so myself as a child watching the monkey, if I was a baby and I was living with a monkey, don't you think think I would, as a baby, a French baby learns French. An Indian baby learns Hindi or another Indian language. An English baby learns English. So a monkey baby that lives in a house with a monkey would start to take on some of the characteristics of a monkey. I could show you some of the characteristics, but it would be too embarrassing. I'm not going to do it, but I can do it because I know the characteristics of a monkey really well because I grew up with two monkeys. So the only way to become spiritually realized is to associate with those that are spiritually realized. And that's sad news for a lot of people. But it's true. I can't argue with truth. The truth is what it is. It's unarguable. It is what it is. And it always will be. Uh, you're not going to become enlightened by practicing Kriya Yoga techniques. Meditation techniques are just for the beginner. It's just for the beginning, for people that have no real spiritual longing, for people that have very little spiritual heart open. The best thing for them to do is to religiously practice Kriya Yoga techniques, attend Ananda talks, or attend SRF talks, or attend your guru's talks, which is rare because most people learn Kriya Yoga from the institutions, unfortunately. I never learned anything from an institution. I never went to an institution. I never wanted to, and I still don't. I could go. I could actually become a monk at SRF, and I would be perfectly happy now. I can live whatever situation I'm fit in. I can live just like they do. Uh, so uh, well, if Kriya Yoga practice makes you self-realized, and there's hundreds and thousands of people practicing Kriya Yoga, where are the self-realized? Where are the God-realized? Are they hiding somewhere? Everybody from Self-Realization Fellowship come to me with questions. Everybody from Ananda comes to me with questions because they have doubts about what they're doing. Why would they have doubts about what they're doing? It's because Paramahansa Yogananda is not their guru. I can say that Jesus is my savior. I can say that if I practiced love for Jesus, I would practice the teachings of Jesus. I wouldn't have to go to church. I would practice what Jesus taught. Then I would be a follower of Jesus, and I could say I'm a disciple of Jesus. I can. So it isn't inaccurate that you can say that Yogananda is my guru. It isn't inaccurate, but he isn't your guru in the sense that you're living in Sri Yukteswar's ashram. You're not having that experience. You're in your house, you're in your home, you're in your car, you're at work. You have no contact with yoga. people say, well, I do have, I, I feel his presence in my room. Do you really think devotion to Yogananda and practicing the Kriya Yoga that you're going to start uh, communicating with spirits? Is that what's going to happen? That's what almost everybody thinks. The, the spirit of Yogananda is going to look after me. The spirit of Babaji, who has eyes everywhere, is going to look after me. Who taught you this? I was never taught such things. I was taught real facts of life. Uh, a guru when you ask a guru to be your guru. I can, as a child, we used to play cowboys and Indians. I always wanted to be the Indian. So I would be the Indian. I would say to myself, I am an Indian. I'm shooting the bow and arrow. That's, and as a boy, I remember doing that. And I tried to be the best Indian I could possibly be when we would play cowboys and Indians because we had a jungle in the backyard, in the back of the houses. Big, huge jungle where it was like we were out in the wilderness of the West. Uh, so that was our primary theme was cowboys and Indians growing up. So I learned, I watched cowboys and Indians on television shows, on Westerns, on Saturday night. All of us children did. So by watching every Saturday night, every Saturday night, every Saturday night, every Saturday night, we started to have the mannerisms of the cowboys. We started to have the mannerisms of the Indians. Uh, we, we we started to think Western. We started to see everything in life Western. Uh, we were children, so it you could say that it's really children, and not in a good way. You could say that it's childish to think that the spirit of the gurus is looking after you. Now, the spirit of your guru is looking after you, but the spirit of the gurus, just because you've gone uh, and taken Kriya Yoga initiation, this is what people think. They think that you go to SRF, you go to Nanda, you go somewhere else, and you're brought into the club. So you've been given the sacred uh, rights of membership. And so now all the gurus are looking after you. What is meant when that's said by Yogananda is that because you're practicing the teachings of the gurus are protecting you. But it's in the practice of the teachings. It isn't that the guru is in your room uh, on the ceiling looking after you. It's only because you're practicing. You're practicing the real teaching only. How many people are practicing Kriya Yoga? Hundreds of thousands and dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of countries. Is Yogananda able to break up his uh, spirit, to break up his awareness, and be at every country at the same time, in every yogi's house at the same time? Or is he going from here to here to here, this house, but then he has to go to that house, and he has to fly across the country and go to that house? Oh, oh, no, well, Yogananda is one with God now, so he's at all the houses all the time. When you're one with God, that is true. But you're not communicating with anybody if you're one with God, because there's nobody to communicate with. There's only God. And if there's only God, there's no reason to communicate. Everything is self-evidently perfect. So I'm telling you the real Kriya Yoga secrets. These are the real Kriya Yoga secrets. And I tell you these things so you don't waste your time with doing the same old thing day after day after day, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You have to realize that you're not the physical body. A really good way to realize that you're not the physical body is just simply remind yourself. You don't even have to see the Atma to make significant progress. You just remind yourself when you wake up, oh, I'm starting the day, but I'm not this physical body. The reason why that's so effective is because you're not the physical body, because you are the Atma. And you're just reminding yourself what you actually are instead of just automatically hurling yourself into the worldliness. You're saying, well, before I start the day, I'm going to start the day by knowing what I actually am. And I don't even have to consciously know it. I can just remind myself that I am that, and I am living in this world temporarily. So as I'm living in this world temporarily, I'm going to remind myself that I am that. I don't even have to be that because I'm already that. Um, if if you know that, then everything is fine immediately. So you start your day, you remind yourself that you're not the body. You think of spirit. Spirit has been described. Brahma has been described as infinite, pure, uh, um, blissful, full of knowledge, full of love, full of compassion, uh, infinite feeling of indescribable bliss. And just by thinking that, just by saying that, you know that that's true. Doesn't that sound true? That's what you want. You want to be full of knowledge. You want to have infinite bliss. Um, you want to know that you're not physical body. You don't want to suffer all the pains of the physical world. So you get out of bed, you remind yourself, I'm not the physical body, I'm Atma. And say you've got lots of problems. Uh, I share all my problems with you, and you share, and most of you share all your problems with me. I, I, I know your problems because I tell you what mine are, you tell me what yours are. Because we have we have that friendship. Uh, so we say, well, all things shall pass. I was speaking to Archana earlier, so she knows that I have a really, really bad toothache. It started the night before last. I mean, just after I was getting my breath from all these other problems that you've been hearing about, uh, I wake up in the middle of the night, my tooth is throbbing. It's just the tooth socket. The tooth is gone. There's just a little rim. It can't even be pulled. They would have to surgically remove it. And my first thought was, gosh, I'm not going to be able to give satsang. But I didn't give satsang last Friday. And I don't remember all the problems that I had now because it all seems like a dream. I can't even, I would have to think about what's happened the past week because I really don't remember. Because none of it's real. But it sure seemed like a big drama. Did uh, I can make a big drama. Uh, I can put on a big performance. Um, actor on the stage. But because you are that, because you are pure, you're blissful, you're infinite, full of knowledge, you just have to remind yourself And then let's say, okay, you do have problems. And I'll just relate to my problems that I've had the past week. So, um, well, these problems aren't so daunting when you know that all those problems just relate to this physical body. They don't relate to you, but you are in this physical body temporarily. So you know it's all temporary. So whatever it is, we can endure it. We don't even have to fight it unless we're inspired to fight it. If we're inspired to fight it, then that's God telling us that we should fight it. If we're not inspired to fight it, then don't fight it. Uh, most uh, things that happen to me, I don't fight it. I've had enough experience. Maybe it's just because I'm older. I've had enough experience to see that everything passes. And as you get older, everything passes faster because it speeds up as you get older. It actually does. Uh, time doesn't exist. The reason as you get older, maybe most of you haven't experienced this yet, but time starts to go by extremely fast. The older you get, the faster it goes. This is a fact. But the reason is because remember when you're a child and you wait for a holiday or you wait for your birthday? It was just a month away, but it seemed like eternity. It seemed like years before your birthday would come around. It took a long time just for a month to pass. And now it's August, right? What happened to July? Uh, it's because as you get older, you get more experience of the world. So you're holding a larger bucket of world. And as you're holding that larger bucket, the, the vastness of what you're holding on to is speeding up. Because you're not pausing to contemplate. You're not pausing to learn. Whereas the child is pausing. The child isn't reacting as much as the child. Maybe the baby, it doesn't look like it's learning, but that baby's learning a lot just by being a baby and just by observing. You know, when I raised little puppies, they learn by watching the other dogs, especially the older dogs. That's how they learn. And that's a fact. That's how they learn. They have their dog nature. They, their learning is accelerated by living with other dogs, especially older dogs. So would it make sense that as a human being, which is really a human being, it is also uh, we're incarnated into the same thing as an animal, it's the same thing as a bird. It's a carcass of, well, it's a suit. You're going to understand it's a suit. But let's call it a meat suit to remind ourselves that it's flesh, it's blood, it's fat, it's bone, it's organs, uh, all the things that a bear would love to eat or a tiger would love to eat. Uh, and I've heard of stories, and I'm sure you've heard of stories too, of bear attacks, and bears have, have do eat people. Uh, I grew up in Florida, so we have thousands of alligators, and alligators are almost the same thing as crocodiles in India. Uh, there's a place called Wakala Springs, and it was just a short drive from our house, and it's one of the deepest springs in the entire world. Clear, perfectly clear water, and it goes down so deep they haven't even been able to explore the bottom. As they go deeper and deeper, they find all the dinosaur bones. They find Indian artifacts, and then they go deeper. They find dinosaur bones, Brontosaurus, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Stegosaurus bones, and it goes so deep. They haven't gone deeper into it because it also gets more complex to get into uh, like cave-like structures that can go, but could also start to taper off and get smaller and smaller, and you don't realize it, and you can't turn around to go back, and it's a dead end. It's very, very dangerous. Um, so you look at the in the springs, we would swim in the springs. That's primarily why we went there. So the swimming area was on this side. It's beautiful sand, um, a diving platform, which is very, very high, really high platform, because you could dive into the spring. There was no bottom. So it would build the platform up really high. There's no danger of you hitting your head on the bottom, because you're not going to hit anything going into the spring. And a diving board goes directly into the spring. Well, on the other side of the spring, there are hundreds of alligators. So the children are swimming on this side, the parents are swimming. I would swim hundreds of times, and all the time that we saw the alligators on the other side of it. And they weren't that far away, maybe probably 30 or 40 yards away. And alligators can move really fast. Um, well, uh, from time to time, they would an alligator would die, and my father did this because he worked with the Florida Wildlife Commission. So he worked in a zoo, but he also worked with bears. He had a pet bear, a pet black bear, and um, tigers, lions, bears, monkeys, but especially birds. So I grew up in well, also snakes, lots of snakes. Grew up in a wildlife uh, environment. Um, so he was occasionally when one of the old alligators, that the alligators as they get older, they can get bigger. There was one, I think they called him Joe. There was one alligator that was huge. He was the biggest. But if they died of natural causes, they would do like an autopsy because they wanted to be not more knowledgeable about the springs and how to preserve the springs. And you could tell a lot by uh, what was the cause of death of the alligator, what was his diet, why did he grow bigger or was he smaller than the average alligator? So that if they died, they would do autopsies on them, and from time to time they would find uh, remains of humans in their stomach, like a leg bone with a Converse tennis shoe attached to it. So occasionally those alligators were eating uh, people, mostly college students. Um, that's what we think we are. We think that we're food for the alligators. Um, no, we're giving we're giving the most advanced body of all creation, and that's the human body. And it's through the human body that the soul, that the Atma, can realize itself. The soul got lost in the plant. Soul got lost in the mineral. The soul got lost in the plant. The soul got lost in the insects. Got lost in the animals. Got lost in the birds. Got lost in the cow. And they got lost in the human being. But it's only in the human being incarnation that you can realize what you are. The birds can't, the animals can't, the insects can't because they don't have any self-awareness. But it's kind of odd because self-awareness is also what produces our ignorance. It produces our ignorance, but it also gives us the opportunity to realize what we are as Atma. The ignorance is is what Jesus, or not Jesus, but in the Bible, the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden, they became embarrassed when they saw they were naked, and that self-consciousness, not self-realization, but self-conscious. I'm separate from you. You made fun of me, so I'm embarrassed. You praised me, so I'm proud. Um, you beat me, so I'm defeated. I beat you, so I'm the hero. Um, uh, I have standards of beauty uh, according to what society we live in. Or I'm compared to others, I'm ugly. Or I have uh, my friend's really smart, does well in school, and I'm not very smart, and I have trouble in school. Uh, he's a good athlete. I'm not a good athlete. She's a good dancer. I'm not a good dancer. Uh, we're dealing with all the massive, almost infinite variety of human beings. Especially when you're in India, you're you get to observe so many human beings, and each human being has self-consciousness. I mean, they think that I am this body, and because they think that they're this body, they think that the whole world relates to them. This world doesn't relate to you. It's not relatable to you. It's only relatable to you because you accept yourself as the body. It's self-consciousness that causes you to accept it. If you didn't have self-consciousness, you wouldn't accept it. Um, when I don't get out very much, but I used to go to Walmart a couple times a week. I'd get in the truck and drive there myself, and to get something, to get some lumber, get some wood for or buy a canvas for a painting or something, or buy food, buy fruit, vegetables. Um, especially when I was painting, because when you paint, you kind of get lost in what you're doing. Because it's not so much a skill as it is an attitude of expression. So it's you can get lost in it. So I would, back when I was painting for a living, I would usually start painting at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would take a break, and then, well, okay, I'm going to go to Walmart and I go to the store and to buy something okay, I'm going to go there to buy a canvas. So I'm in the studio painting, and now I'm inside the store looking at the canvases. And I would look down to see if I was wearing clothes. Did I put my clothes on? Did I put my shoes on? I couldn't remember anything between being in my house and then being at the store. How did I get there? Well, obviously I drove, but I wasn't doing it consciously. I did everything perfectly, but it didn't register as me doing it. Because I was just in a flow of working, of painting. Uh, all of us have had experiences like that. That's usually when you're the most happiest, is when you're not thinking about yourself, when you don't feel self-conscious. When you're self-conscious, you're judged by others and you're judged by yourself. I'm a good person. I'm a bad person. I got angry. That's not good for Kriya Yoga. Or I broke this rule and I'll do better next time. Um, so the very best way is just simply remind yourself first thing in the morning. And then about midday, remind yourself again, which would be about 10 o'clock. And then at noon, when you start to take food, if you take food at noon, understand that you're putting food into your mouth, just like an animal does. Why are you putting food inside this body? Well, it's because you're hungry. But are you hungry? I can decide to fast. Last fast I did uh, was for 3 months. It's when I was still doing the Darshana groups. So I don't have to live on food. I know for a fact I don't have to. So I don't have to eat. Um, so we're living and we're behaving like uh, a limited human being on Earth. But we have the human body. It's only through the human body that we can realize God. We can realize that we're one with God. And you do that by practicing Kriya Yoga technique, the Kriya Pranayama. So Kriya Pranayama is different steps. There's the first Kriya Pranayama is when you're taught how to breathe and you're taught to visualize and you're taught the incoming breath at the back of the throat coming in cool. Visualize it going up the spine. Visualize it going to the medulla, into the agna, into sarasara, and then back down to the base chakra, and then revolving back up. And you visualize that while you're breathing. The breathing is connecting the physical body with the astral body, because you're visualizing through the astral body. So it's the astral body that visualizes. So you're consciously connecting the physical with the astral. And as you continue with the Kriya Pranayama, you start to feel that I am causal. I'm not physical and I'm not mental. At first, you feel that you start with the physical, which is the breathing. You start with the mental, which is the visualization. And then as you practice, you're uh, having the experience of the causal. You're still you, but you're not associating with the physical body. You're not doing the Kriya Pranayama with the breathing anymore. When I do Kriya Pranayama, I don't breathe. I do Kriya Pranayama without any breath. I do it in the breathless state. That's the advanced Kriya Pranayama. Um, in in practicing Kriya Yoga, how many do you know that practice the advanced Kriya Pranayama? That practice pranayama without breath? How many do you know that do that? Well, know that if the Kriya Yoga teacher can't do that, they're teaching you a beginning Kriya Yoga methods. It, it's the more advanced methods that accelerate your spiritual progress. So the reason you do the Kriya Yoga uh, practice in Kriya Yoga as your sadhana is because you want to accelerate everything, because you start to develop a real thirst, a real hunger to realize what you really are. You're not the body. I don't want to feel trapped by the world. I don't want to suffer in this world. I want to realize what I really am. You have a thirst for that. And so you want to do everything that's controllable by you to allow that to happen. And so there's certain things to do that are helpful. Um, it is helpful not to drink alcohol. Um, if you drink alcohol, you're not going to be able to practice Kriya Yoga properly. You're going to be more lazy. You're going to be sleepy. You're not going to be able to concentrate as well. Uh, so if you do drink alcohol, it's if you're serious about Kriya Yoga, you should stop. Um, I never drank alcohol when I started practicing Kriya Yoga. Didn't even know really what it was. Um, my parents didn't drink, so we never had alcohol in the house. Um, and then it's best. It's not that important, but it is helpful to be vegetarian, but it isn't. You don't have to be. The only reason it's helpful is because your uh, uh, animal products, meat products, uh, are slower to digest, and the slower your digestion, the more you're pulled into the mechanism of that furnace uh, in your body, the more you're connected to your body. So fasting, eating little, eating vegetarian, you're you're living less and less dependent on the physical body. So your meditations are much better, much better. When I was initiated, I was just eating one small meal a day. I never thought about food, never thought about drinking, ever. Um, never thought about it. Never thought about my physical body. Well, only time thought about my physical body was when I'd go into the Ganges and it was really, really cold. That would wake me up to the physical body. And then occasionally at night when I would sleep, the ground was really hard. And so I'd feel something poking in my back. Uh, Other than that, I never thought I was a physical body, because my body is like light and air. So I would sit for hours at satsang, but I never got fatigued. I never felt, I never felt my knees. I never felt my back. I never felt my neck. I was concentrating on the Mahatmas or the Guru's satsang. So, um, and I felt less and less that I'm a physical body because I was eating nothing and I wasn't thinking about food. The more you think about food, the more you're tied into the physical body. The more you're eating, the more you're tied into the physical body. Um, you hear about celibacy and those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be practiced. The only reason it's practiced is because you would feel less that you're the physical body. That's all. And so it makes meditation a little easier for beginners. It, as you advance, it doesn't make any difference at all. Larry Maslach, I think he had 5 children, didn't he? And Shrotaswara had one daughter. It doesn't make any difference at all. The realization, whether you're married or have children, have You could have a dozen children. It doesn't make any difference. Or you could have two wives, as they used to have. You could have 20 children, 25 children. You could have hundreds of relatives. It doesn't matter if you're advanced in your practice, because when you're advanced in your spiritual practice, you just bypass all of the physical and you go right into the spiritual immediately. When I meditate, which is really hardly ever, never, it's no different than what I'm experiencing now. But when I do, I don't do the Kriya Yoga techniques. I just go right into spirit. And spirit is right here. So I just leave what's out here and I go into what's here. That's all.
Guruji,
Yes.
for us, it's very important to do the technique and not go straight into meditation, right?
Especially the Kriya Pranayamas, it's important that you do 14. And the reason for that is because it keeps the prana flowing through the chakras. So it keeps the chakras open and it keeps them upwards instead of stagnant or drooping or going down. It's the chakras like petals of a flower going upwards. So that's why it's important to do the Kriya Pranayamas. So the Hang Sa is very important because that's what allows you to experience that you are Atma, that you are spirit. And the Kriya Pranayama is important is because you are the physical body temporarily. And so because you are the physical body temporarily, you're responsible for it. And the astral body has the chakras, the physical body doesn't. But you can't have a physical body without an astral body, unless you had a physical body without a soul, which could be possible. But the reason you can progress the most fastest way is to have a God realized guru that has affection for you, because then the guru will spend more time with you. The most, but that's that have that. Imagine, as I said before, that Yogananda is my guru. But he's not your guru in the sense that he's your guru. He's your guru if you're practicing the Kriya Yoga methods. And if you're practicing what he taught, you're following what he taught, then you're loyal to what Yogananda taught while he was on earth. You're loyal to that, and that's connected to him because that's what he left behind. And what he's left behind is always attached to him. Just like look at Vincent van Gogh. Is Vincent van Gogh still active in this world? He's dead, but is he still active in this world? Absolutely he is. All of his paintings are treasured and becoming more and more valuable every year. He left those behind. He painted those. I mean, he made those paintings. But he's still, a portion of him is still active in those paintings. There's like a portion of Yogananda's in the autobiography of Yogi. That's why if we're sensitive, we feel that power. Okay, Tat Sat, and we'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
Om
Thank you.
Tat Sat.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Om Tat Sat, Gurudev. Thank you, Gurudev.
Gurudev.
Guruji.
Thank you, Guru.
Pranam Guruji.
Om
Tat
Tat Sat. Thank you,
Om
Guruji.
Tat Sat. Om
Om
Tat
Tat
Om
Sat.
Tat Sat.
Sat.